You're listening to CreepGeeks Podcast. So it begins again. Welcome back to the CreepGeeks Podcast, Season 7, Episode 274.
Long John Nebel, Restrict Act, Tech-Savvy Congress, TikTok ban, and hybrid super pigs, USA's Uncanny Valley.
Yeah, we got a lot going on. All right, so anyway, welcome back to CreepGeeks Podcast. Took a little bit of time off to do a whole lot of nothing.
I was working.
Nobody cares. That's what I'm saying. Nobody cares unless you're doing your podcast or your paranormal show or whatever.
Thanks.
No, it's true. I mean, think about it. People care a little bit, but really at the end of the day, they just want the content related to the stuff that they're looking for.
Okay.
Hence all this drama that's been going on with the paranormal stuff. We've done two. Yeah. Was it two? We talked about some drama, like anyway. I don't want to talk about it anymore.
Okay.
But it was basically with Zach Baggins and Nick Groff and Dakota and all that stuff, and everybody's messing around, saying all this stuff, and oh, it's terrible, and then shows are being canceled and all sorts of crazy stuff. And guess what? That's how it is, and we don't care. Mm-hmm. Well, we care, but we really don't care.
I don't know.
I'm trying to think of that commercial. Somebody steals their product, makes it better, and sells it cheaper. And they don't care.
Oh, what is that commercial?
I don't know. I mean, maybe it was a mattress commercial or something like that.
You're right. Haynes Furniture.
So if you're local to the Virginia area, you're like, yeah. Otherwise, you have no idea. You're like, what are these idiots talking about? I haven't even gotten into the podcast. So. Okay, so anyway, let's roll into the podcast. We do have a lot of stuff to talk about. So the other day, I was looking at some stuff, trying to figure some things out, and I came across a delightful find.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
Do you want to know what it is?
Sure.
All right. It is the Long John Nebel Archives.
Okay.
And I found it on the Internet Archive. And the Internet Archive is a place that basically stuff on the Internet gets archived, right? I mean, it's kind of I don't know how to describe it, but, people store stuff and they want to put things on the Internet to be able to save in perpetuity, whatever, or make sure it just doesn't disappear. All sorts of things like documents and books and video and audio, software, images, whatever. And one of the things I came across was Long John Nebel's archive that somebody has put together.
Yeah. Like
64 files, And so the add date was relatively recent. It was added January 13th, 2023.
Oh.
And the identifier is called Long John, spelled wrong. This says Nebel, but it's Nebel. Collection, Internet Archive, HTML5, uploader version 1.7. Mm-hmm. So if you're sitting there and you're going, who is Long John Nebel? Let's set it in perspective like this. If you know who Art Bell is, if you know who... I gotta make this relevant. I'm 53 years old. A lot of people are not, and they probably don't know. Right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so look at Twilight Zone. Mm-hmm. In Twilight Zone, your presenter had a very distinct voice.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Art Bell, very distinct voice, very distinct sort of style of what was coming on. It's almost reminiscent of what you would call the old radio days, of how they delivered what they were talking about.
Yeah.
All UFO, paranormal, whatever, weird stuff, right? Twilight Zone was its own animal, and from the Twilight Zone came all sorts of other things like, I'm trying to think of something more recent, like Dark Shadows. Maybe that's still kind of old.
Yeah.
Well, you're young. Tell me what's, the sci-fi shows, the radio shows, the stuff that you grew up with, that you remember. Oh, you're fired. So fired.
In search of.
Well, you can't really see. I'm deliberately leaving "in search of" out of it with Leonard Nimoy. He does have his own distinct thing.
Yeah,
but it's not kind of okay. Here's what I'm going to do. So we're going to play a little clip from Long John Nebel's intro to his show to give you an idea of where we're going with.
I just thought of one.
What?
But it's not paranormal.
What is it?
Bill Curtis. Because he did.
No, man.
I know.
I know he has a distinct thing too,
Yeah.
but no, it's not the same. All you murder missing people weirdo podcast. No, this is not the same. Here, I'm gonna go ahead, and I'm gonna play this. Let me figure out how to back this up. So this is so that you'll understand what I'm trying to say. Right? Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. Do you hear it?
No.
Of course not. You know why?
Why?
It uses like Winamp to play. There we go. Wow, that was kind of delayed. This is kind of the 1950s UFO thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hi there. This is Long John Nebel. In the brief period of time available on the two sides of this disc, I'm going to bring to you a picture of one of the most unbelievable things to occur in the 20th century. The fantastic phenomenon of madness, or soul-shaking prophecy of hope or horror. Events which shook this country and most of the rest of the world. It was, of course, the age of flying saucers. Very possibly the most amazing phenomenon in the history of modern times.
Yeah. So he's done, he has his own sort of way of doing things, and one of the things, this is something that's a little bit more relevant to what we talk about.
This morning we're talking with Ivan Sanderson, the gentleman that investigated the West Virginia monster. And we have Walter Rochette with us, and we also have Donald Cohn with us. Now, Hugh McPherson, he's been very interested in getting the facts about the famous West Virginia monster. I think Gray Barker was the author of a book, They Knew Too Much About Flying Saucers. And if I'm not mistaken, Ivan, you investigated the West Virginia monster.
Gray and I were there at the same time, as a matter of fact, along with a lot of other newspaper reporters.
Well, now we're taping this portion of this morning's show, and we're going to send this tape down to Hugh McPherson. Incidentally, Hugh McPherson has a minor bird that works with him on the program.
Oh, yes, I know his name, and I know his work, too. A good minor bird, yes.
Well, supposing you tell us something about the West Virginia monster.
Are you ready with the tape?
Well, it's going right now. Uh-huh.
Well, Hugh, I'd like to try and put it in a nutshell as follows, as I did before. First of all, I went down there about 5 or 6 days after the occurrence took place as a request of the North American Newspaper Alliance, for whom I do some reporting work and special representation, and also on behalf of True Magazine. It was Ken Purdy of True Magazine who, when running out of his office one day on some private business, picked at random out of a mass of clippings that used to come to his desk every day a perfectly ridiculous statement that a 12-foot green monster with red glowing eyes had been seen on a mountaintop at Fatwood in, I think it's Saxton County, isn't it? West Virginia. I didn't know.
Yeah. So who do you think that is?
Was that Gray Barker?
No.
Or Sanderson?
No, I mean the monster. Who cares about the people speaking just yet? But Flatwoods Monster.
Was it, or was it?
No, Flatwoods Monster.
Okay.
12-foot tall, green, red eyes.
You mentioned the minor bird thing, and that just totally derailed me on.
Yeah, I don't. Evidently, it was relevant back then. I was like, first, I was trying to figure out what a minor bird was. I'm like, what are they talking about? But okay, so anyway, you've got Long John Nebel, who basically did a show, and he was out of New York, and he did the show for a long time, and he talked about UFOs and aliens and the flying saucer thing and some other things, right? Mm-hmm. And he, is one of the, let's just call him one of the grandfathers or godfathers of this whole UFO thing.
I do like in the Wikipedia description, and maybe we should start using this. His program dealt mainly with anomalous phenomenon, UFOs, and other offbeat topics. I really like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, instead of paranormal.
But he doesn't call them UFOs, too.
Yeah.
He calls them UFOs.
UFOs.
Yeah. Which makes sense to me because, that's kind of old school. But anyway, we have a link to the Internet Archive where you can kind of check it out.
Yeah.
Where there's like 64 different files and all sorts of stuff. Where he talks about everything from UFOs to Hollow Earth to alien contactees, paranormal and other strange topics. And it says his show was the precursor to Coast and other paranormal shows. Yeah, it's radio.
Yeah.
And Art Bell kind of had almost the same sort of delivery when he did his thing. And he's, Art Bell was a product of the time. So, he was a youngster when this show was on. I don't think a lot of people know about Long John Nebel.
Yeah. And
I figured it'd be good to include it. Because if you're looking for something to listen to and you want to kind of get an idea of what they were thinking back in the 50s, 60s, into the 70s, I think a lot of people these days who do research and look into this sort of the phenomena in general, right, who are maybe my age or younger.
Yeah.
I don't think that they realize how much people from back then were already on top of this stuff doing this same thing.
I mean, you look at like some of his guest lists, like regular guest lists, and you're like, he was into this.
Yeah, it was serious business.
I mean, like regular interviews with George Adamski, George Van Tassel, Pauline Peavy, regularly had skeptics like Arthur C. Clarke and Lester Del Rey on his show. Love to talk about the Flatwoods Monster, Nazca Lines, and something called the Shaver Mystery. Why am I drawing a blank on that?
Because it's not as cool as or more popular as the other stuff.
Yeah.
So. I mean, he's born in Chicago, dropped out of school in the 8th grade, and wound up, picking up this show that he did. I think he started, he says he moved to New York around 1930. At the age of 19, his first job was an usher in the New York Paramount Theater. Yeah. And then later on, long story short, he sort of kind of got in there. His nickname, Long John Nebel, right? Mm-hmm. Was his nickname because he was supposed to be tall, slender, around 6'4", but never weighed more than 166 pounds. So he was a tall guy. So in 1972, he married a former pinup model. She had some controversial claims of having been a victim by CIA mind control mind control and influence and all sorts of stuff. So the guy's he's got the background of being sort of kind of a crazy nut job.
Yeah.
But it works. So in the 1950s, radio throughout the United States was floundering, right? And they're trying to compete against television. Kind of shocking, right? Mm-hmm. So anyway, he kind of came on board, and he basically started doing his shows. And they also implemented a 7-second delay because the station he worked at, WOR, was worried about some of Nebel's guests or callers using profanity on the air. So he was one of the first to use the tape delay system in radio, giving engineers a chance to sort of clean it up before it went live. So in 1962, WNBC offered Nebel more than $100,000 a year. That's a lot.
Wow.
For a radio DJ.
That
and he
number
continued there. So
comes up again in his regular guest section because Jackie Gleason was a frequent guest.
Yeah.
On one show, Gleason offered $100,000 to anyone with physical proof of aliens visiting Earth.
Yep.
Gleason later upped that amount to a full U.S. $1 million, but it was never claimed.
Yeah. So, he died in April 1978, right? Yeah. And here's where it's kind of a little weird. And his mutual network slot was taken over by Larry King.
Yeah, I saw that part. And then at one point, his show on WOR,
Yeah, the Party Line.
called Party Line, was handed to James Randi.
Yeah, who is also a skeptic.
Yeah.
So I just thought it was pretty cool to kind of put a little bit of history in there. So I played that little clip so you can get an idea who he was, and maybe you may have heard him, maybe not. And so I mean, honestly, if it wasn't for Ivan T. Sanderson and him doing a little radio program about Flatwoods Monster, it probably wouldn't have gotten really any real interest at all. Yeah. And I started to look through the archive to see if there's anything about Mothman, and I didn't really find anything. But that's the one that and the funny thing is that we were on our way out towards to go see the Flatwoods Monster and all that stuff, and I played the entire interview, and you slept through the entire thing.
I was very tired. So
I'm driving, listening to this 1950s weird, wacky UFO type stuff, trying to keep from killing us. Well, I mean, it was in the 60s, but you know what I mean. It has sort of style too. So anyway, I thought that was pretty cool. Figured you guys might like that. And here's something, though, that was asked of us a couple weeks ago. And I can't remember exactly where I seen it, but I remember to save it and put it in the notes. It's a listener request from Wade. Oh. And he wants to know what the name of the song title and artist name was of a song that we play periodically on the podcast. And I'll play you a little clip because I can do that because we have a license for it. So you ready? Maybe I can't. Hold on. Let me turn it up.
My gun and my powder, my old woolen trousers, some bread for the road. The call of the bugle, another refusal to wait for the snow. She knows that I'll grow slowly as a raindrop down a window pane. She knows that I'll hold her locket on a chain to keep the evil things away.
All right, so anyway, there you go. I like that song. It's kind of why I put it on there because it's got, I think I like to think of it more of a crazy paranormal than just some random, unrelated. Yeah. Keep the evil things away. What's the actual evil things? Who knows, right? But anyway, that song is by the Friendly Savages. Mm-hmm. And the song name is Her Lock on a Chain.
Cool.
Yes, there you go. Yeah. All right, well, that's it. We're done.
Really?
No. Okay, so moving back into the podcast, talk about something a little different. The past couple of weeks have been kind of crazy. So TikTok is supposed to be banned. And there was congressional hearings about TikTok, and they brought in the CEO of TikTok and grilled him for a couple hours. And I watched lots of clips from it. And really, the whole TikTok thing is kind of a smokescreen for the S.686 Restrict Act bill that they're trying to push through for the 118th Congress. Yeah. Which, if you really dig into it, is a really sort of scary bill. If what it boils down to, and I'm really going to make this real generalized. So if you're like really following this line by line, this bill and everything, don't come at me. Anything they disagree with on the internet, they can take away. Anything.
Pretty much.
No, if they don't like how your bank is doing business, right, and how it affects your bank account, they can turn it off. They can take it away. It gives Congress way too much authority. And people are like, well, they're, our policy leaders. I don't trust any of them. And honestly, I'm kind of aggravated with them because the idea of TikTok being banned because they say, oh, it's backed by China and it's dangerous. And what about your personal information and information leaks and their spy gathering and all this stuff for China is a complete bunch of crap. Yeah. Because they're coming at them. They had their own agenda. They didn't give them really a chance to answer. And it is exactly the same stuff that Meta and Facebook have been guilty of and had to pay fines for.
So and that's the thing.
Hold on. And there was lots of lobbying from Facebook/Meta to take out TikTok. Now, I wonder why that would be. 150 million users on TikTok with very little censorship involved. And so it became a thing. And this was the congressional hearings that were brought up. And it was just very pitiful.
If Facebook has already been through the ringer, because we watched some of those hearings where it was like, let's drag Meta through these congressional hearings, and I remember those questions being just as absurd.
Yeah.
And the end result was, it's still pretty much the way it is. Yeah, they had to pay some fines, but, I mean, it's a multi-billion-dollar company.
Yeah, well, it's all about your data and what they can take and what they can sell.
And now the same thing's being done to TikTok, but for some reason, the same dumb questions are being asked, and it's not even being acknowledged as an, I mean, I don't know. It honestly is a way to push this Restrict Act beyond.
Well, that's what they want, and it's coming from Senator Warner, who is a jerk from Virginia who's been trying really hard to do things like this. I think he wants to work his way back to the presidency, and I personally never particularly cared for his stance on things because he's quick to take away personal freedoms, and I don't think that's not what I think America is about, right? Mm-hmm. So we do have links of everything we talk about in the show notes, and like one of them, this came from CNN, right, where it says TikTok CEO in the hot seat, 5 takeaways from his first appearance before Congress. Right, Mr. Chu, right? Mm-hmm. Su Chu. Okay, so the first takeaway is Washington has already made up its mind about TikTok, right? The hearing lasted 5 hours, and they brought in, a bunch of questions were asked. And what's the scary thing is that you have both sides. It's bipartisan. Both of them are just hammering away at this guy and wanting to take it away. And whenever you have, like, Democrats and Republicans, right, mm-hmm. united in something, it's money. It's always money involved with that.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that unites these jerks.
It's never actual safety or concern for welfare of general public.
Maybe. Yeah, I think
that's what
you would hope, honestly.
Well, it's never about that. It always seems to be about money and control rather than, I mean, yes, we do see news headlines where latest TikTok craze teaches teenagers to do something dumb. But that is literally 1/1000th of TikTok, just like it's 1/1000th of YouTube.
That's the excuse they're using for all this stuff. And they've been, okay, so the same video that shows up on TikTok is also there on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and everywhere else. So to act like it's one platform that's doing it, I mean, you've got 150 million users. Their data is just as secure as any other place. And I honestly catch more of my news from TikTok. And then I see it and go, that's interesting. Let me go to the source to see what it's all about, which, I mean, is usually through like the UK or somewhere. Cause I don't want to sound like one of these people that's just like, so you just trust the American media? You should. Everybody should. I'm kind of like, let me look for myself and see if it's the real deal or somebody's trying to pull the wool over my eyes. And
the past few days, my phone, which is an iPhone, has only shown me Apple News recommendations and Google News recommendations for very hiking and rocks, and this is the best crystal for whatever. But I had to use TikTok and Clapper to find out.
Yeah, Clapper is a TikTok alternative. It's becoming that way.
I found out recently there was a really scary shooting in South Carolina, very close to our general area.
There's
nobody, even the evening news didn't tell me that. So.
Yeah, it's a thing. And TikTok's impact on children was a key focus. And it's like, okay, they have kind of you got to be 13 to use it, and you have parental controls, and
just like Facebook.
Yeah, it was a smokescreen to do two things: to put a hurting on TikTok so that Meta could do better and make more money, because they lost $10 billion and they're shocked that they lost it. And a big part of how they lost it, because companies like Apple going, no, we don't want to allow you to track and sell data. Mm-hmm. We're going to track and sell your data. So if anybody thinks Apple is there to protect us, if you got an Apple phone, no, they are selling that data to make money too. And you know what? I guess they need it. I don't know. But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, this is kind of how it works. But one of the questions that really sort of caught me off guard, actually it didn't. It made me very, very sad. Was when, God, I don't even want to say, when you're sitting there, it's like, does TikTok use Wi-Fi? It's like, dude, everything. If you have an app, it's going to use Wi-Fi. Your phone uses Wi-Fi. Your TV uses Wi-Fi. Of course. Mm-hmm. And I had hoped that the question was going to be more involved. Okay, well, maybe this is just the beginning, and he's going to get to a more nuts and bolts and have a more relevant, not tech stupid question. And no. And it even threw Suju for a loop. He's just like, or Suchu, he's just sitting there. He's just like, is that actually the question? You know what I mean? He just had this look like he was confused. And it is such a simple, ignorant question to ask. And it completely threw me off guard too. And I would like to give the congressman the benefit of the doubt and think that maybe he's smarter than it meant, does it use Wi-Fi without you knowing to reach out? But no, just does it use Wi-Fi? It's just such ignorant questions. Like base questions. And I know there are lots of people out here who maybe don't understand technology, but it is 2023.
Yes.
My dad is in his 70s, understands how Wi-Fi works. He knows that his phone connects to Wi-Fi. If the Wi-Fi gets turned off, he has no internet. And he also understands that Wi-Fi and the internet are two separate things, because you can have a Wi-Fi network and not have internet.
Yeah.
It's basically a closed network, and you can have internet and not be on Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
And people put those two terms together, and I see it all the time, like especially if you're maybe a ghost hunter who is trying to figure out, can I use this amazing $19 camera that you can get off of Amazon or whatever and set it up to look at ghosts? Do I have to have internet? And people will answer, Wi-Fi is required. It's like, dude, they are two separate things.
Yes.
It angers me. I'm like, okay, so. But I was shocked at how stupid some of these questions were. And it makes me think, okay, if you are in Congress, you should either know some of this or have a base understanding. And it makes me, and I think the test should be, and I'm probably going to make some people angry here. Mm-hmm. If you wear your cell phone on the outside of your pants in a holder, whether it's vertical or horizontal, right?
Yeah.
You shouldn't be serving in Congress or in any technical place or whatever, unless you got some big giant cell phone that does multiple purpose. Because, I mean, come on, man. Or let me make it like this. If you have a cell phone or a smartphone and you can't operate it, you shouldn't be in charge of a technology-based company or somewhere who can press the button to send nuclear weapons anywhere.
You shouldn't be allowed to make those types of decisions.
Yeah, because you don't know what the hell you're talking about.
And that's agreed. I will caveat part of what you've said with the whole fact that I have to work with certain people like this. Their skill set and their understanding is only in one thing. They have a very broad understanding. However, these are politicians. They represent us in the government. They have a team of aides who should be there to educate them or at least write them better questions. And they're not. No,
they just get handed a thing and they ask it. And that was part of it, right?
Yeah.
But the whole thing, it didn't matter what the answer was. They weren't there for it. They wanted to get their little bit out there.
Yeah.
It was embarrassing.
It was, because I mean, like that famous question, does TikTok use Wi-Fi? I am hoping that there was some like congressional aide who wrote a question that was like, does TikTok use Wi-Fi, semicolon, and how does it utilize the Wi-Fi in a home network?
Does TikTok track your eye movements?
Yeah.
It's like, okay. Well, you're trying. But you're still, it was just, and I know this was a couple of weeks ago, and a lot of people were probably like, actually, it wasn't a couple of weeks ago. Well, maybe getting close to it. And people probably didn't pay attention to it, but you've got 150 million users that use TikTok. It doesn't matter what your political leanings are. People are using it. They like it. Mm-hmm. They're getting news, information, whatever. They're doing what they like. So why would it come to, let's take away these 150 million users from being able to use this app? When they tried to say, oh, it's a Chinese-based company. And it's like, they're not. They're not Chinese-based. They're Singapore.
Okay.
Most of the staff is American.
I have been calling one particular social media platform twice in the past week because my profile got converted to digital creator. I have called them twice this week, and in the past month, I've probably called them 4 times. Their entire support center and the escalation to my case are not in the United States.
Shocker.
The people who handle whether or not I can stay on this platform are not in the United States.
Shocker. And you know what? That's the same for all these companies. To act like TikTok is something different.
But I have never, for that particular social media platform, ever spoken to someone in the United States except for a big giant convention that happened in Albuquerque.
Yeah, well.
And even those people couldn't answer tech questions.
And he had answers to all their questions. Like, they're going to move everything to the U.S. just to make them happy. They have age restriction just to make them happy. They have everything in place to make them happy, but they didn't want to hear it.
Yeah.
And like, does your kids use TikTok? And he's like, my kids are 8. They're not allowed. It's for 13 years old. And then, it's like, well, how come you can use it in the U.S.? And he's like, well, other countries ban it so that you can't. This is a policy. It's in place for the U.S.
Yeah.
Much like all the other tech companies follow. There's no difference. Yeah. This was basically Meta, who is doing absolutely terribly and losing tons of money. And and this is not just something I'm, like, ooh, I guess that's what it is. No, there's it's there. It's documented. Everybody knows about it.
But I mean,
2 seconds learning. It was embarrassing, the questions that were being asked. And it really made us as a country look stupid.
It does. And
I'm tired of looking stupid. I got my own thing to worry about, right? I don't need people going,
and
come on, man.
For us, when we try to find like paranormal or UFO news, TikTok's one of the first platforms I go to for UFO stuff.
Well,
because for me, and then I got to say, when it comes to Facebook, I don't even bother with half the cryptozoology stuff on there.
No,
anymore.
I don't. To be honest with you, I don't use Twitter, I don't use Facebook, and I don't use TikTok to figure out what we're going to talk about and what the research is that we need to do for any of the subjects and stuff. I just don't. Because I look at them to see because there's a lot of like wrong information. But here's the thing, though. At the end of the day, everything that we talk about on this podcast is Paranormal and Weird News Podcast. We can't prove any of it. No one can.
Well, I mean, I do find some of the stuff we talk about, I do find it on YouTube or TikTok.
Yeah, well.
And, other places as well. But
it's silly. So, I don't know, TikTok versus Congress, right?
Maybe we should add Long John Nebel's thing. We talk about anomalous phenomena.
We'll write it down because I don't know how to spell it, so make sure it's spelled correctly.
Yeah.
Anomalous.
Anomalous.
Do, 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 do. Anomalous. Do, 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 do. Anomalous. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do.
Where'd you stop?
All right, so we're going to take a real quick break and then come back and we're going to talk about something that struck me the other day, and I threw it out at you as soon as you walked in the door and you didn't care. But I think you understood after a couple of minutes what I was going for. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes you go out and do stuff, and I'm sitting here looking like, what are we going to talk about in the podcast? And then, I feel like Charlie Day, where he's just gesticulating all crazy with this board of shit behind him on the wall. All these like arrows and crap pointing at different things. And I just like, hey, man, because I got somebody to talk to because Pepper doesn't care. She get on the couch and physically turn her back to me and ignore. Stuff. Well, I know. I do too. That's why she ignores me. She does the... And you're like, what are you talking about? So anyway, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Are you looking to start a podcast? Then see this episode's show notes for our unique promo code to get up to 2 months of free podcasting service with Libsyn when you sign up for a new account. Get your show on Apple and Spotify. Get helpful audience building stats and all the support you need to sound your best. They can even do video. Bring your podcast to life and have your voice heard here, there, and everywhere with Libsyn. Again, see our show notes for our unique Libsyn promo code and get podcasting.
That's right. Get podcasting.
Sure.
It's great. Okay, so this is kind of the uncanny valley. Mm-hmm. I'm sucking on a peppermint, and it's like really loud in my head. I'm like, oh, no. I'm doing what I hate, right? Okay, so the uncanny valley I'm trying to find the easiest way to describe what the uncanny valley is without going into too much detail, because that'll take away. Oh, hold on. I actually have a link to the actual Restrict Act, which is what this whole TikTok ban is all about. So if you wanted to read the text of S.686, and not snippets of it from the internet, and actually go to where it is, we have a link to that. I feel like that's important, but okay. So if you look at the explanation for Uncanny Valley, I found a place that kind of did it probably a little bit better than Wikipedia. And it's the explanation of Uncanny Valley, a hypothesis with intriguing examples. That's not why I put it then. The Uncanny Valley is the feeling you get of fear, right? Conjugated. I've never heard that word before in my life. With disgust. I think it basically mixed with disgust when you see an uncanny person or thing, right?
Oh,
so what?
They were trying to avoid the word abhorrent by using fear conjugated with disgust.
Yeah.
That is a feeling of, like, this is abhorrent.
Well, it starts out kind of like, oh, and then it turns into fear, and then you're disgusted by what you see, and then I don't know what happens after that.
Fight or flight.
Yeah, so a creepy person who nearly looks like a human being, but sometimes the fight or flight turns into more than just fight or flight.
Yeah.
You know, because you're fighting to stay alive. Typically, people do the fight or flight for survival, whereas if you can look at this being like, we need to eradicate what this is.
Aggression or repulsion. Because if you see something uncanny that pertains to Uncanny Valley, your reaction is to attack it so it does not exist anymore, or is not in your presence.
Yes.
Or
it goes even further to attack it, to remove it from existence.
Yeah, or to be so repulsed by it that flight almost, you know.
How about cannibalistic giants in the Southwest?
Aggressively attacked so that they no longer exist.
Yeah, but I think that's probably part of it. But anyway. So, you have a creepy person, maybe looks like a person, things that look like other things that when you realize are not, fear, disgust, can lead to violence, the whole thing, right? Mm-hmm. So the hypothesis, which explains the feeling of revulsion in human nature, if you see something that looks real but it isn't, because there's probably something abnormal, be it in looks, actions, or movements, it will creep you out. And this is scarier than ghosts. Right, that we've heard or watched on TV, because most of us don't believe in them. And this is part of their Uncanny Valley hypothesis from psychology, right? But creating uncanny stuff is a real thing. There exist such robots that absolutely look like humans, but if we find them even a wee bit different, our mind doesn't accept them, and that causes the feelings of fear and disgust.
Yeah.
So I was sitting there thinking about it, right? And I'm like, I wonder if that can attribute to just everything in general.
Yes.
And that's when I came up, and this is probably going to anger some of our Canadian friends, right? Because let me explain. And this is what I was rambling to you at as soon as you walked in the door, because I had found it on Roku TV. There's a Roku channel, and they had a whole bunch of like sci-fi shows, like from the early and even into the late 90s that were on that I'd seen. And I was watching them, and you could tell that these were like made in like Vancouver or somewhere like in Canada, right? Mm-hmm. Where they film a lot of shows. A lot of stars come from Canada, a lot of TV shows and series and things like that are filmed in Canada. And the show was supposed to be like it was based in America. Right. I mean, that was the idea. That was the sort of idea that they put in you, is like, this is America. And you're like looking at it and you're like, that's not really America. Things were just a little off. The buildings could be any city, but they just didn't look quite right. It's passable if you're not from America. It'd be completely, and then by America, I mean United States of America. If you were like from England and you're watching, you're like, yeah, it looks good enough. That's close enough to being like America. United States, right? U.S. And then it got me thinking, Canada, in many ways, is the U.S.'s uncanny valley.
Yeah, but I don't want to destroy Canada.
We're not destroying Canada. No. But I mean, it was part of it. And see, okay, uncanny valley isn't that you're not always just going to just destroy whatever it is. Most people, like you said, fight or flight. You're going to run away.
Yeah.
Or you're going to know there's something off with that and stay away from it. We're talking about modern uncanny valley.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So Canada is the U.S.'s uncanny valley.
I remember watching some of those shows in like the mid to late 90s, and like X-Files was a good example.
Yeah.
Like they did so much in Canada, even their Blue Ridge Parkway episodes that they did.
Yeah.
It
was done really well.
You know, yeah. But if you just looked hard enough, you were like, that's not America. Yeah, there's lots of gray and concrete, but it's not dirty enough. Or
First off,
it's
how dare you.
overly dirty, but it's not gray enough. Because they filmed it with a lot of gray and a lot of overcast skies and
I think that's kind of how Vancouver is, though.
A lot of episodes were like that, gray and overcast. But then, like, they had the episodes where they were going to Area 51 or whatever, and it was just dry packed red dirt, and I'm like, it's just not the same, you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, they have like
they have Badlands, yeah.
So, yeah, I'm like, Canada is America's uncanny valley. What? And you didn't buy it. You're like, whatever. And I'm like,
I'm not afraid of Canada. That's
in
why.
order to belabor I'm not afraid of Canada either. Okay, first, raise your hand if you spent time in Canada.
Yeah.
A month?
No.
Put your hand back down.
Shut up.
A month is plenty of time in Canada to get an idea of how close to the U.S. you kind of are, and just based in general. And it's fine. It makes complete sense because Canada is America's hat. That's part of it, too. We share lots of things.
I spent just enough time to be asked to leave.
Raise your hand if you were kicked out of Norway. The country. Exactly.
I was kicked out of one of the most polite countries in the world.
Well, then you deserved it.
Probably.
Totally deserved it. So, and I like Canada. Canada's freaking awesome. And, and one of my favorite things is going to Peggy's Cove. It's in Halifax, like in Nova Scotia, right? And taking a picture of that one cabin. It's like a pier, and there's a cabin or a house. It's not really a house. It's like a boathouse.
Yeah.
On the pier, and there's these, sailboat, little boats and stuff, skiffs all tied up that everybody takes a picture of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I took that picture too. And every so often it changes colors.
Huh.
Instead of being like white and red or whatever. So anyway, but I liked Nova Scotia. And I liked Halifax. And I liked being in Canada, because I was in the Navy, so we went there on a ship, and it made sense to hung out with some Canadians. I like Canadians. Anyway, there you go. So I made a list of things that could sort of fit into the idea of modern uncanny valley.
Yeah.
Right. Things that just kind of setting you off, right? And things that probably just shouldn't be. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Men in Black.
Agreed. There's other...
Not the movie.
Yeah.
But,
there's other podcasts who have actually done episodes about, like, how they're not quite...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the one thing about them is like,
yeah,
passable from a distance. Kind of like a crappy homemade car paint job. Looks great from 10, 20, 30 feet away, right? Depending on, and then you get up on it and you're like, ooh, something's off, right? Yeah. Humanoid robots and AI avatars.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. You've seen some of the humanoid robots and they just look creepy.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Movie androids. An Alien. Like, remember in Alien?
Yeah.
There's 2 androids in Alien. Well, okay, so if you look at it, there's 3 androids that are in Alien, right? And all of them go bad to a certain degree. Well, one of them didn't go bad, but she just didn't trust him.
Yeah.
So the first one went bad in Alien. And then in Aliens, she didn't trust him. Bishop, I think. And then the third one, what's his face? Magneto was the alien guy, or was the android guy. He was bad. Well, I mean, the third one being the one.
Okay.
It's all out of order, right? But okay, so who else? The older legacy style robots that are non-humanoid, like all of Boston Dynamics robots are creepy. They are. The little dog thing.
I love him.
Okay. he is trash.
I love him so much.
If there's an alien uprising, I'm shooting every one of those. I'm shooting all of them, but that will be one of the first ones to go stomping around.
And the fact that, as part of the experiments, they treat him badly, I'm so mad by that. I like the Boston Dynamics dog.
Would you like him with a weapon strapped to his head, just randomly shooting at stuff?
They haven't done that to him.
Yes, they have. Okay.
Well, not that one.
Maybe Boston Dynamics had. Okay. I would bet all the money we have that, yes, Boston Dynamics has done some sort of weapons testing with all of these animals because, okay, a lot of Boston Dynamics money came from DARPA.
True.
And you can buy these things as watchdogs and security, right? So you're saying you can't strap a gun to one of these things?
No, you probably can. But
no, you absolutely can.
I like him.
And it's fat, like mule dog looking thing that runs around. You know what I mean?
Stop.
No, he's like a pack mule. And then you got the one who's doing gymnastic flips and stuff. All of them are creepy. All of them.
I understand.
It's even creepier without having a head or a face to look at. It makes it even more creepy.
That's okay, because my brain understands this is a robot. It has functions, and while this robot may eventually become advanced and be capable of higher functions, I understand that it is not a dog, even though I call it a dog. I understand that, and I like that creature or entity or whatever
it's a threat. All of it is a threat.
I like the Boston Dynamics.
Even that stupid prescription delivering robot at the VA running around yelling at you.
that was a jerk.
That thing was awful. Yeah. I haven't seen one in a long time, and I don't know if we're still using it or not, but I think it would get in front of you, block you in the hallway, and basically yell at you to move.
It reminded me of like the Futurama cartoon robots, thing, because it was just this big block that would move and had medicine inside of it.
Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah.
And it would yell stuff too. You know what else is creepy?
Yeah.
Like Uncanny Valley, creepy stuff.
What?
Is your voice.
That's true.
No, recorded. Like when you record your own voice and listen to it.
Oh, no, I agree.
I think that's part of the self-defense mechanism so that you know that it sounds weird and off, so that if something was in the woods yelling at you and it was yelling at your own voice, you wouldn't go in there.
Yeah. I mean, that harkens back to old folklore and mythology.
Yes, that's why I put
from
it in
indigenous as well as like Greco-Roman mythology, the whole concept of echo and being wary of echoes.
And doppelgangers.
Well, this is pertaining to voice. So if we're only talking about voice, then yes.
This is big picture stuff.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Doppelgangers, depending on the mythology, aren't always able to speak. They can only just mimic you physically.
Well, look, we're using really broad strokes. You have to hammer it down towards the detail.
Listening to your own voice recorded, that was my biggest hurdle with the whole podcasting in general and doing YouTube videos, because I dislike the sound of my voice. And it creeps me out as it is.
Yeah, you get over it.
I guess.
You have to have the cavalier, I don't care attitude.
Okay.
Otherwise, you get hung up on stuff. Like those American Girl dolls.
I can't stand those.
And the other ones that look like super hyper realistic baby dolls are weird.
I don't
like them.
I don't like baby dolls at all. So like when people have like, oh, let's check out this antique shop, and there's like the typical porcelain doll corner at that antique shop, I will avoid it. My parents tried to get me to like dolls. I couldn't. I just no on dolls. Clown babies, nope.
All right. That's enough. Simmer down.
I will get riled up over dolls.
Just relax. Simmer down. All right. How about literature? Can you think of one? Let me scoot my microphone closer so I can use zero effort.
What do you mean, literature?
In literature, there are, device plots or character development in literature to give you that uncanny valley feeling.
Okay.
And sometimes they use that in a way to make you fear and have the revulsion, but hopefully they're good enough that they can convert it to love by you, right? The reader, to be able to identify with Frankenstein's monster.
Oh, so casting a mirror upon humanity.
No.
Okay.
I mean, you could do that with anything, but I'm talking about Uncanny Valley. From a distance, Frankenstein's monster looks like a regular human, right? But he's really an amalgam of the good and bad of all of us. He's still a monster. But if you give him a shot, you'll love him.
Okay.
It's still Uncanny Valley. That's the only one I could think of. Here's one, Smurfs.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, the blue and white Smurfs?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a terrible theory about Smurfs. I've seen this on TikTok of all places, where basically this Smurfs are fairy folk, right, that would lure children into the forest, right? And when they died from exposure and were like in snowbanks or whatever,
Oh, God.
when they died, right, these mushrooms would grow underneath them, and the mushrooms would basically turn into Smurfs. And the reason why they're blue and white is because they were the ones that lured the children in to their demise, and they're blue because of frozen children that were found in snowbanks and snowdrifts and stuff.
That is awful.
Yeah. And that Gargamel was really a good guy because he was a wizard, right? And he was there to basically find and fight these fae folk and get rid of them, because they're the ones luring children into the forest. They die in the snow. So Gargamel was actually the good guy because he just wanted to save the children. And he had a cat, right? And the cat was supposed to help him.
His cat's name is Azrael, which is totally occult-ish.
Yes.
Oh, my gosh.
So anyway, we should have saved that for another podcast where we could talk about it in great and agonizing detail for another 42 seconds, right?
Now I'm messed up about that.
Yeah. Speaking of messed up, there are some destructive super pigs from Canada that are basically threatening the northern U.S.
I sent you a video today of 2 pigs beating up a black bear.
Yeah, well, it's actually one pig was beating up the black bear.
Well,
the other one was like, whoa, and then went to the corner, and the other one came in all hot.
Yeah.
Pigs, I don't think people realize how dangerous pigs really can be. Because you leave them out in the woods, they turn into boars, and they will hunt you down, and they can run like 30 miles an hour. A pig can leap 15 feet in the air?
No.
Yeah, they can.
Okay.
That'd be impressive, right? Like, whoa.
I mean, I remember...
Hence when pigs fly. Yeah.
Like a village warning someplace in New Mexico because, like, large adult pigs got loose out of a farm.
Oh, well,
like,
no, I mean, you got javelina running around all the time.
Yeah.
They're wild pigs.
The threat was that they would somehow, I don't know, join the javelina and just wreak havoc on a whole community.
Well, it's real easy. They turn into javelina, I think.
Yeah.
Just like, they're like weird, long-haired, hairy pigs that run around and do stuff. So, all right, so here we go. Destructive super pigs from Canada threaten the northern U.S.
Okay.
They root through crops. They prey on native species. They cause soil erosion, carry pathogens. They spread that stuff to humans, and they're smart. Wild pigs have terrorized the southern United States for decades. Mm-hmm. Can cause a couple $1 billion worth of damage every year, and they're in places like Texas and Florida. But South Carolina. Yeah. South Carolina. But the colder regions of the U.S. could soon be staring down their own swine foes.
Oh.
Canadian super pigs, giant, intelligent hybrids of domestic pigs and wild boars, are poised to invade from the north. What these are big, giant, hairy, smart pigs. Because the main reason why you didn't have a whole lot of wild sort of incursion of these wild pigs is because it's cold.
Yeah.
But if they're already bred for the cold, they don't care.
Yeah.
They come on down, right?
These are wild
Eurasian boars.
Yeah, wild Eurasian boars brought to the U.S. for recreational hunting in the 1900s.
Yeah.
These boars bred with the existing feral pigs, forming hybrids, and today the wild pig populations have spread across southeastern U.S. Well, I guess there's their own version up in Canada.
Right.
Yeah.
So compared with the U.S., Canada has been battling wild pigs since only recently, when they brought them in from Europe in the 1980s to be raised on farms.
Yeah.
Farmers created the super pigs, and what they did is they bred their hogs with the feral populations to form larger varieties that provided more meat and were easier to shoot.
Ooh.
And that's from The Guardian. These pigs usually weigh between 120 and 250 pounds. The big one recorded at 661 pounds.
Jesus.
That is a heavy pig. That's like a cow.
Can you imagine?
That's like a cow pig running at you.
Something come at you.
I don't know how much a cow weighs, but maybe a medium-sized cow. Cow weighs 1,000 pounds? I don't know. They can get pretty big. Right now, all the experts at one time were like, oh, yeah, no, not a problem. Right, if a wild pig or a wild boar ever escaped from a farm, there's no way it'd survive. Well, guess what? They're wrong. These pigs, because pigs are smart, these pig surprise experts, their large size and ingenuity have made the animals resilient to Canada's cold, and one of the things they like to do to survive is tunnel under the snow. These animals line their snow cave, they make snow caves, with cattails for insulation, keeping them warm. And if you go in the early morning on a cold day, you can actually see steam pouring out of some of these nests.
Oh.
Yeah. So now wild pigs have a range of about 300 square miles. Oh, no, I read that wrong. 300,300 square
They're
miles.
missing a zero.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
It doesn't read right. But and that was in 2019. So in the last decade, they've been expanding their territory by almost 34,000 square miles per year. These hogs eat Canadian crops such as wheat, barley, canola, and things like that. They're opportunistic omnivores, so they pretty much eat whatever they want.
Oh, that's horrible.
What?
So being opportunistic omnivores, they'll gobble up pretty much anything available. Small mammals, reptiles, eggs, nuts, tree saplings, and even deer fawns. Little baby deer. That's horrible.
Yeah. And it kind of ends off with, we should be worried because we know the biology. And that's from the Smithsonian Magazine.
Yeah.
So they're coming.
That's not cool.
I mean, feral pig populations or boar populations are bad. Bad in Australia, bad here in Texas and southern states.
Yeah.
Now it's going to be bad in the north states. And a lot of people were like, oh, it'd be cool, man. We can just hunt them. Sure. But they reproduce and have so many that you just get overwhelmed. There's not enough hunters to shoot these things.
They reproduce, and they are, I don't know if they run in packs, but every time I've seen,
they
run in groups, you know?
Like huge groups.
I mean, there's that really dumb internet meme that goes back and forth between people who do support the Second Amendment and people who don't. And it's like, well, if I have 40 to 50 pigs on my property, what do I do about it? And it's like, well, you do need a high-powered weapon to deal with that.
Yeah.
Because these pigs, being opportunistic omnivores, can eat deers.
They'll eat your chickens. They'll eat your little duck.
Yeah.
What do you call little baby ducks? Ducklings. I mean, they eat all that stuff. They don't mess around. They
have attacked guard dogs, farm dogs, children.
Yeah.
They have diseases that are serious concerns.
Yeah.
Brucellosis, leptospirosis, and trichinosis.
That's when you have these little worms you get in your muscles.
Pseudo-rabies. I'm not sure what that is, but that sounds scary. It's
like Great Value rabies. You know what I mean? You get it from the store. I can't afford regular rabies, man. Let me get the Great Value rabies. And here's a fun fact. Regular rabies and Great Value rabies made in the same place. So it's really the same rabies. Right. Some of these,
you only need
some of these youngsters out there watching the internet are like shocked. Wait, do you mean that I'm paying $9 for Trader Joe's? I get the same thing for $1 from the Dollar Tree?
Yeah.
I've been duped. It's like, no, you've been played the sucker and you're buying into the brands and the pretty colors and stuff rather than the actual product. And every Gen Xer who's had to deal with generic stuff. And their parents like, it's the same.
You know, it's funny because I don't.
Remember, you used to have like the black and white, like the black and white, like beer.
That's what I was going to say. I haven't been on base or been in a commissary lately, so somebody let me know. Do they still have the black and white label?
No, hell no. They have different things like Great Value, Kirkland brand, all of that stuff. It's all was supposed to be generic.
Like an on base commissary, if they still had that sort of thing.
No, it went away.
Oh,
and as soon as they started coming up with their own kind of labeling, it didn't look like the shame that was having a bag of like Chiefs Puffs, that kind of thing.
Apple.
Because when I was growing up a kid, other kids would make fun of you.
Apple Circle
You know, 'cause
cereal.
Well, no, that's better than just, cereal.
Yeah, well, because I wanted Apple Jacks and I couldn't get them. So
Apple Dapples.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Because kids are horrible. Oh, you don't have it. All tastes the same. Mm-hmm. And then you got some other people who are like, you know what? I buy this big plastic garbage bag full of cereal that you can get, like the Apple Dapples, and put them in the Apple Jacks box and go, see, it's the same. And you're a dumb kid and you believe it.
yeah.
Yeah. Like the worst was this lady's like, oh, I just got back from McDonald's. And the kid's super happy that he's getting chicken nuggets and French fries. And she's like, here you go. And they look these weird misshapen chicken nuggets and crinkle fries. And she's just lying to this kid. You know what I mean? And I'm like, that's not a chicken nugget. And that is not a McDonald's French fry. It was obvious that that's what she was doing.
Food is the uncanny valley.
It is. It absolutely is. Because that's where we were going to wind up and end the podcast with the whole idea that, the uncanny valley of stuff, the modern uncanny valley, right? Mm-hmm. Products like that, like Great Value stuff and everything else.
Trader Joe's animal cookies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Products that are like, is this really, from a distance, they all look the same, right? Because they do. You see them side by side.
Yeah.
Apple Dapples or whatever in the Apple Jacks. And you get up on them, they're, causes you disgust, revulsion, violence towards your $8 bag of cereal.
I'm going to be violent toward a $14 bag of pistachios.
Totally. Well, that was part of it too.
Yeah.
Ooh, get these amazing pistachios, and then here's just the bag that says like tree nuts right next to it.
I should make like
Same thing.
uncanny valley generic cryptids.
They already have them,
That's true.
so
In certain places.
Toy stores and stuff have them too. It's like instead of being Superman, it's like Super Guy,
Like, what was it? Like Walmart this past Christmas had like
Spider Fella.
Squatch cups, but they weren't actually Sasquatch. So yeah, I remember those.
That's trash.
Yeah.
So anyway, there you go. I think we're going to round off the podcast with there you go. We're done now. We have talked a lot. Well, let me make sure we have talked about everything we wanted to talk about. Yep, sounds good.
Okay.
No, we got two more things. We're going to end it with these two things.
Oh.
Because we can't just end it with being Uncanny Valley and destructive super pigs and all that other stuff. We got to talk about this. And okay, so in Florida, you have Florida Man, and in our podcast a couple years back, we would do like New Mexico woman or Florida man.
Albuquerque woman.
That's what it was. Albuquerque woman or Florida man.
Yeah. And it got really tough some days.
It did, and then it started to get to where people might think it was racist or something. It just started to not look good. Because, I mean, there was enough craziness on both sides to you were like, wait a minute.
Yeah. Or not offensive.
Yeah, what did I say, racist?
Yeah.
Does it matter?
No.
It doesn't matter. Somebody's going to be offended and say, oh, well, I'm offended by this, so you're obviously a terrible person / racist, and you're not.
Yeah.
I just thought it was funny because there's weirdness in both places. So everybody knows Australia is weird.
Yeah.
So in Florida, we did a couple stories about guy taking alligator shopping.
Guy putting a...
Hold on.
Yeah.
And this has happened multiple times. We talked about this several different times. Like one guy threw an alligator through a drive-through window because he was super mad. Right? One guy took him shopping in Walmart. It's been multiple things.
Another guy left one on the roof of his ex's house.
Yeah. Yeah. And one guy got pulled over because one was on top of his car because he'd like left it on top of the car. So anyway, right? This one I thought was pretty funny. Australian man arrested for taking wild platypus on misguided shopping trip.
I like that. Misguided shopping trip.
Because there was another article we talked about a long time ago where it's like pig gets drunk, drinks 12 beers, attacks cows or something like that.
Yeah, goes to Walmart, eats all the snacks or something like that.
No, it was in a campground.
Oh,
it was like wild pig gets in beer, drinks 12 beers, attacks 3 cows. It was funny, right? So anyway. So this Australian man basically took a wild platypus for a shopping adventure. Yeah. It says an Australian man is in hot water with the law after he snatched a wild platypus from its natural environment. I guess took it with him. Decided he needed a friend.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of funny. But this is even more funny. Right. And this is just from the headline. We're not going to go too deep into it because we don't want to cause problems. Right.
Yeah.
And I can totally see this happening. Early morning Monopoly game sparks scuffle with samurai sword welding man in Belgium.
Wielding.
What did I say, welding?
Yeah.
wielding.
Which would be just as applicable.
I'd be just as scared if you can wield with samurais. So in a bizarre story out of Belgium, I'm going to go ahead and explain it, even though I said we weren't going to talk about it, right?
Yeah.
An ill-advised early morning Monopoly game drew the ire of a man who went after players with a samurai sword. He went after players. So the very strange incident, right, reportedly occurred this past Sunday when a group of 4 individuals inexplicably decided to play the popular board game around 5 o'clock in the morning on a sidewalk in the city of Brussels. The impromptu gathering understandably annoyed nearby residents, and a pair of particularly irritated neighbors took it upon themselves to put a stop to the shenanigans, which ultimately led to one man being hospitalized in life-threatening condition. Obviously, I think he probably got bit by that samurai sword. The wild showdown began when a man exited his home brandishing a stick and began arguing with the group. And as tempers flared, he was soon joined by his equally ornery son, who was armed with the samurai sword. So a scuffle subsequently ensued, and basically a katana wielding man and the Monopoly players wound up being injured. So if the katana wielding man was wielding, whatever, don't correct me, right? If he's wielding the blade and he got injured by the sword, right, and the players got injured by the sword, I would think that at some point the man lost his sword and was then bit by his own sword as well.
Or maybe he swung so hard on the return, it kind of got him.
I'm thinking somebody got it from him and gave him a little what for. So you got these two. Oh, one man pops out of his house angry with a stick, and then his son pops out with a sword. Who's next?
My thing is, I kind of feel for these people because the neighborhood was annoyed.
Well, the neighbors were, but
because these people decided, let's start playing Monopoly on a sidewalk at 5 a.m.
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
so the owner of the sword basically should survive his ordeal. I guess he nicked an artery or something like that. So he's pierced by the weapon during the brawl. And he's currently said to be in critical condition, and should he survive the ordeal, he'll be heading directly to jail. So it just sounded crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, Monopoly's for suckers anyway. You shouldn't be playing outside like that. It's really hard to flip the table over. Start losing or whatever. So anyway, that was pretty crazy. So I think we're going to go ahead and end the podcast now. Dude, appreciate you taking the time to listen.
Yep. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. Be sure to find us on social media. We're pretty much on every platform. All you have to do is look for CreepGeeks Podcast. You'll find us on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and we even have an Etsy shop, but that's going to be Craft Intent. You can always search for CreepGeeks stickers on Etsy and find some of our cool sticker creations there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very nice. We definitely appreciate our patrons listening as well. Yeah. All right. Anyway, we'll see you later. We'll be back again here real soon with another episode.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
So, tonight's dinner is going to be pizza.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
Sure.
Very nice. All right. Anyway, see you later. Take it easy. Bye-bye.
Bye.